webinar. Today's webinar topic is Mastering Sanskrit. And it's a special webinar with students from our first cohort that have gone through different parts of the Mastering Sanskrit program at Hindu University of America. And it has been an amazing journey with Hindu University of America building this program on this fundamental foundational part of understanding Hinduism, right? We got to know the script, we got to know the texts and traditions. And in order to do that, we got to learn Sanskrit. So I don't have too much of an introduction because we have different students who are going to be sharing their experiences and how they've participated. But of course, we have Sri Kalyan Vishwanathan, president of Hindu University of America. We have Dr. Sai Surla, who's been helping to guide the Sanskrit program. And it is just my pleasure to be on hosting. Thank you for being on with us early. If you want to put in the chat where in the world you are and where you're zooming in from, it's always exciting to see the diversity of Hindus from around the world that are in this mission, that are learning Sanskrit, that are interested in this, in recovering and defending our culture and traditions and history and our texts and traditions. So please put that in the chat. If you have questions, please hold them until the end. You can put them in your Q&A box. But without further ado, let me hand it off to Kalyanji, president of Hindu University of America, and he can give us some more context on what we're going to get in this webinar. Kalyanji?
Yeah. Namaste. Namaste to everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you. First of all, I want to acknowledge that at least for those of us in India, we're going through a very, very difficult, challenging time. And many of you may know people in your lives who are struggling, been admitted into ICU, or somebody who's even passed away. For my share, in my families, we do have a couple of people who have passed away very abruptly and dramatically. And it is, without question, one of the most extraordinary times we are living through right now. I mean, an unprecedented. You couldn't have imagined something like this would happen in our lifetimes. So I just want to mention that and wish everybody has the courage to get through this time as best as we can, and the empathy that we need to express to those amongst us who are suffering much more acutely than we are. So with those preliminary comments, I want to welcome all the students from the master's program in Samskritam, which they've been participating in partnership with MIT, Maharashtra Institute of Technology, Maharishi Veda Vyasa School of Vedic Sciences from Pune. And I also want to welcome Dr. Sai Susarla, who is the dean of that particular institution, MIT SVS institution. Saiji, namaste. Welcome. And Dr. Vaishnavi Nishankar, who is one of the faculty in the program. She's also here with us. I hope, Vaishnavi, you can open your video camera so we can see you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Now, I just want to say a couple of things before we get this going. Saiji and I have been speaking about this. If you ask ourselves, what is so different about the master's program in Samskritam being offered jointly between HUA and MIT? What's so different about it compared to the many, many Samskritam programs in, for example, in the Rashtriya Samskrita Samsthan institutions in India, which includes such venerable institutions like, Gurukula, Guru Kalidas Samskritam University, and on, right? Sampurnanand University and many others, the Shankara University and so on and so forth. What is the difference, right? I think one of the important differences is the commitment of the master's program in Samskritam to enable the students to begin to interpret the Shastras on their own without mediation, without a translation, a translator in the middle. So in other words, it goes beyond merely appreciating the language, developing an aesthetic sense of appreciation of the literature, but it actually encourages our students to interpret the Shastras for themselves and begin to investigate them as to whether they have any contemporary value for us, us as human beings today. And this commitment is getting expressed in a particular way in this program. And as I understand it, students have been asked to go and look at a text of their choice to try to exercise their competence in the language by trying to interpret the text on their own, and maybe with some help from the faculty and so on. So what you're going to hear today is a vignette from many of the students who've been engaged in this exercise. So hopefully our goal is to illustrate the accomplishment of the students on the one hand, bring to light the uniqueness of the program, and perhaps inspire some of the members of the audience to actually consider joining the programs if you are ready for it. Okay, so with that little preamble, I want to invite Dr. Sai Susarla to take over and say a few words, and then we can proceed with the webinar. Okay.
Namaste, Kalyanji, for that excellent introduction. So I would like to just quickly, for those of you who do not know fully what the MA program or master's program in Sanskrit of HUA is, I'll just quickly run through a couple of slides of the uniqueness and the syllabus, and then so that you know the context in which we are, our students will be talking, will be sharing their experience. So just let me quickly share that. Okay, one second. So ours is a master's in Sanskrit medium, and especially designed for those who have had a science or engineering or the STEM background, technology background, which makes them which has some unique connection with what we want this whole program to achieve for the students, namely the ability to interpret and innovate around Bharatiya Vignan, especially the Shastric wisdom, which has been not been given enough attention till now. Okay, so with that being the focus, of course, our program is university grade, like in any other university. It has gone through the rigor of what a typical MA program at a minimum must provide, but with the slight difference that we do more of concept study with text as the substrate, as opposed to text study being the major focus. So we focus more on the digested knowledge, and then teach people how to study the text through some live examples. So concept-oriented curriculum, not text-based. And this is more aligned to the scientific thinking embedded in the Vedic tradition, so that you don't study the output of the Shastrakaras, but you try to enter into the Shastrakaras mind so that you can think like that. So you can take out the tattva and then probably you can apply it in your own context today. So what I call as recontextualizing Bharatiya Vignan. So to prepare that has been our whole thrust. And so if you look at the typical workflow or the roadmap of a typical Sanskrit enthusiast to become a Sanskrit expert, the path is basically you start with Vyavaharika Sanskrit, which is conversational, colloquial, understanding of Sanskrit as a regular language, and you get a little bit more into the grammar so that you can read text by yourself. And then normal route is to go through the MA or BA, MA combinations. One path which takes you through is basically literary appreciation, the ability to study the literature, the Kavya literature, and maybe a little bit of the taste of different aspects like Vedas here and there, like that. Okay, but predominantly the reason why they are studied is to be able to immerse yourself in texts one after another. Okay, and then as a result, you'll become very familiar with the whatever the root texts of the syllabus or curriculum, to be able to teach them to others, which is a very important goal, no doubt. But the other aspect which we are thinking of, we are trying to bring to the table is the one in the orange, which is understand after you become master at the Sanskrit language per se, Sanskrit is just a medium for exposition of some thought process. So we are interested in getting people towards the thought process. And so for that, our next step would be to familiarize people with the Shastric language, which is almost like a technical version of the Sanskrit, we all know. And then, of course, we will also go through textual studies, so that, but with an eye for meta learning. Okay, so that we don't cover full texts in the program, but we will teach people how to read. That's it. Okay, and then that segues into conceptual understanding, conceptual summarization, and going to the mind of the thought, the authors. Okay, and what is the purpose of that? Basically, the last one, which is, as I mentioned, modeling. Okay, modeling in the sense of transforming that knowledge into something you can apply. You can, and then the ability to critically analyze texts by comparing both maybe contemporary knowledge systems and Indian knowledge systems, or within Indian knowledge systems. So the viveka necessary for that kind of a study is what we explicitly focus on. At least try to, we'll see. Okay. So with this kind of a background, so I'll just quickly go to the overall syllabus. So we have a bunch of mandatory subjects and a bunch of electives. The electives are the deeper dive. The intent is the deeper dive into some of the areas that students want to go into. But the mandatory subjects are all these meta learning, have the focus of the meta learning. Like, you need to understand the overall system of Vedic knowledge. You need to understand the Vyakaranam to a certain level of depth to call yourself a master. And you need to understand the whole articulation process, aesthetic as well as otherwise. And you need to understand the scientific basis of the Bharatiya Vignan and what is Nyaya Vaiseshika Mimamsa. And then the tattva of the methodology of exposition, which we call as Vedic Science Foundations. So, and then there is a bunch of textual study, which exercises whatever you have learned in the mandatory subjects in the context of what the familiar Shastras, Jyotisha, Vedanta, Yoga, etc. Okay, and then to culminate it, to bring it all together, we ask the students to do a term project, which is a 2-month or 3-month project where they have to pick something that they have not studied before, and for which they have to go through the original text, basically study to the point where they can actually teach it to others in Sanskrit medium. So whatever it takes for that, they have to go through by putting together all this, whatever they have learned. Yeah. So today we are going to ask our senior graduating students of this master's program to share their what they have been doing in their the term project, the culminating projects, and how the whatever the grind they have gone through helped them or not, whatever it is. So just share their experience. So that with that, I would like to invite. So any one of your
Maybe we can
our
start with
students.
Amit ji could start. I guess he's already prepared.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll just get started. Amit ji, namaste. Go ahead.
Namaste, Saivarya. Namaste, yeah, my name is Amit Rao. I am from Navi Mumbai. I had a background in technical, software technology. I was a scientist working in natural language processing and artificial intelligence and consulting on applications of NLP, but I didn't have any Sanskrit background before I came into the MA. But having come here, I discovered the vast richness of the Vedic knowledge system, our Shastras, and how they are beautifully interconnected with each other. And there's a commonality of structure and model and style running through all of them. So that was what I discovered. And taking the Sanskrit, which was for me quite rudimentary, to the next level happened as a side benefit because of exposure to high level Sanskrit from all our acharyas. So that was a very pleasant side effect. But the main focus, as Saiji said, was on understanding the thought process behind our Shastras. So for my coming to my term project, I've always been interested in the subject of intuition, which is basically going beyond what we can learn from our senses and mind in the normal course. So if we can call that Samanya Jnanam, then there is a certain Vishesha Jnanam which you can get when you are able to go beyond the senses. So in English, this is called intuition. I didn't know what it was called in Sanskritam, but I was pretty sure that our Shastras will talk about it in great detail because if you see the whole foundation of our Vedic knowledge infrastructure is intuition. Because the rishis, they saw the Vedas, they say. That means they intuited them. They actually went beyond their senses, normal human senses, and they could, absorb that or perceive that. So clearly it's some kind of a higher awareness at work. So I was very interested in exploring how that works and whether there is a systematic way of developing it, because I think it's very, very relevant in modern times where we come across a lot of different information, very often very conflicting information from seemingly reliable sources. So we are sometimes at a loss what way to go and what to do. So I was interested, and then I took that as my term project to find out what the Shastric view of intuition was. And as a preparation, I had to first find out what it is called in Sanskrit so that I could identify the relevant text. So there our faculty guided us, Sai Varya, Vaishnavi ji, and the other faculty. So I learned that there are three terms for Sanskrit, because you learn if you come into this program or even otherwise that Sanskrit has very precise terms for things. There's deep thought and insight that goes into every aspect of life. So it's very rare that you'll find a one-to-one mapping from an English word to a Sanskrit word, because Sanskrit will go into the subject from different angles and different terms will be there. So I found that there are three terms, Ritambara Prajna, Pratibha, and Yogaja Pratyaksham, three different terms. So therefore I had to study three different Shastras which talked about this from different aspects. So from the point of view of a cognitive what is called as a pramana, which is the means of cognition or the source of knowledge. It is called Yogaja Pratyaksham, intuition. From the point of view of its application, it is called pratibha, because for instance, for a poet to write a poem, he has to get a flash of inspiration. You can't logically put together a poem or a work of literature by just using your knowledge of Sanskrit or the world alone. You need a certain inspiration or skill. So that is called pratibha. Similarly, when a Vaidya diagnoses a patient, he doesn't always have to go very rigorously through the process. Of course, he can, but very often by a basic interaction with the patient, is able to quickly find out, zoom in on what is wrong with the patient and what is the right remedy for it. So this skill, which a expert physician, some of it might be compiled knowledge. That may also be a part of it, but there is also a part of intuitively getting an insight into what's happening. So it's called pratibha. And Ritambara Prajna is the way, if you see how to develop this systematically, then it talks about there are different levels of awareness and consciousness and cognition. So in my project, I looked at basically two shastras. Due to lack of time, it was basically limited to 2 months or so, about 10 weeks. So in that, I could only take up very focused part. So I looked at Sankhya Darshanam, Sankhya Karika by there's a grantha called Sankhya Karika, and there is of course the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which is the Yoga Shastram. So these were the two main texts, and then of course I also looked at some shastras from Nyaya, like Nyaya Manjari, and from Sahitya I looked at Rasa Gangadhar by Jagannath Pandit, where it talked about these different aspects of intuition. And using that, I put together a model of what is intuition in Indian Shastras, what is its definition, what are its forms, and how one can systematically develop it. And having compiled that, I presented it in the form of a two 1.5 hour sessions, which were completely in Sanskritam. And you'll find that link similarly with all my other colleagues who did different projects there. Many of them are archived on our blog site. So maybe Vaishnaviji or Saivarya can share that link. If you're those who are interested, can go into that. So the experience overall was very, very fulfilling. It was a dream come true because I always wanted to do this, and this MA gave me the right tools and a mindset to do this task. And therefore I can very proudly say that I achieved what I wanted to achieve from the MA, and much beyond. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot more insights I got, but I would like to now hand over to my other fellow participants to talk about their experience. So thank you very much. And if you have any specific queries, maybe if there is time, we can take 1 or 2 questions. Otherwise, we can move on. Dhanyawada.
Thank you, Amitji. Who else? Who will go next? Chandraji? Chandramouli ji?
Sarvabhyah. I am a part of the first batch of students doing this MA certification program. This has been a life-altering experience for me personally, because it helped me to look at our own Shastric texts from an unbiased view to understand what they are really communicating, what did they really intend to say. Most of the problems that I came across in my life so far was to do with an English translation of a Sanskrit text, which means there is an English equivalent for every term. And unfortunately, the first thing I learned in this entire program is there are no English equivalents. If you want to put English equivalents, you have to create a new vocabulary altogether. So every time you create an approximate English translation, it creates a certain imagery, and therefore it leads to misconception. That was the first unlearning I had to undergo. And while doing so, it opened an entire vista of learning and understanding. I have not completed my project requirement because of various reasons due to the raging pandemic and stuff like that, and health reasons. It's work in progress. But what this actually helped me to do is to pick up texts, be it Yoga Sutras of Patanjali or just about, I'm working on Adi Shankara's Tattva Bodha as part of my project work. It helps me to actually parse, understand, go to a Dhatu Pata, look at what the word actually means, what is it supposed to mean, and explore the same concept from multiple aspects. And that kind of a rich experience is so inspirational to me personally that it actually made me actually look at continuing this education beyond the MA program at the same institute, looking into exploring additional details of any single text of interest. So this program actually helped us to learn as a collective. Now all my learnings has also been, of course, the teachers have been outstanding in this institute. The Sahachhatras as well have contributed immensely to my knowledge acquisition and processing. And this has been truly a life-altering experience. And I welcome all of you to actually explore this program without any preconceived notions and use it as a pure knowledge acquisition and analysis process. And it helps you immensely to do so. That's all I had to say.
So thank you, Chandramurli. So one of the outcomes of our interactions with our students has been that because of their enthusiasm and let's say participation in the overall process, it made us to create a new follow-on let's say project called textual immersion. So we are now, for those who have graduated from our MA, we are offering two routes. One, a short-term research program wherein they get a taste of how to do a mini thesis in the Shastric system, and another one, having gone through this process of understanding how to read text, they will actually pick up an acharya and a particular text which they want to thoroughly study, and under the guidance of HUA MIT combination, they will be connected to the best acharya for that field, one of the best, and study under that person and paraphrase it for people like that. So that's the idea. So the whole purpose is to kind of build the bridging exponents of Vedic knowledge. And this program will actually give them that deep immersion required to be able to gain the mastery on a particular subject of their choice. It's called the textual immersion program. So, so every one of these projects has been inspiring our students to get into that stage. Okay, and now I will invite Nagavalli ji.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Namaskar, Vebhyaha. My name is Nagavalli. I'm from Bangalore, and I'm currently the final semester of MA Samskritam from MIT. And my elective has been Veda stream, like Sai Varya mentioned, the mandatory subjects and the elective subjects. I've chosen Veda stream. So besides the basic knowledge of Vyakarana, Sahitya, Nyaya, Mimamsa, which are the mandatory subjects, I have had the opportunity to get basic understanding and a sense of Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharva Veda. Let me tell you slightly about my profession and where I stand. By profession, I'm working as a senior engineering manager in a mobile software company. So mainly I know how to build mobile software. And I have 2 teenage kids. The reason I'm mentioning is also because some of you might be thinking about the time commitments and the demands in other aspects of life. So you can imagine what it takes. Prior to coming to MA Samskritam, I have not had any formal education as such in Samskritam, and I have always been on my software journey, one aspect. But last few years, I have been wanting to, and I've been actually actively searching for a program in Sanskrit, not necessarily MA per se, but something that can help me to feel that sense of connectedness back to the Shastras, back to what are the knowledge systems in India that are talking about. I was only looking for a course like this in order to be able to at least study something that is original in Sanskritam. That was my goal. That's how I started in 2019. I think early 2019, I landed on this MIT MA Sanskritam page, and instantly I was fascinated and intrigued by the overall course structure. Mainly some aspects like the Vedic Sciences Foundation that started in first semester. That really is something that instantly I felt that this is what I perfectly designed for me. But because I had a big question mark, since I was not very well fluent with Sanskritam speaking or writing skills. But when I took the entrance, I realized that, okay, I wasn't that bad either. So I took the jump, fast forward 3 semesters into MA Sanskritam course. I have been able to take up a Shastra in its original and study it, and also be able to present it to other people. So my project mainly is named Pada Vakya Doshas as per Kavya Shastras. Like all of us know, there are many Samskrita acharyas who have defined what a Kavya Shastra should be and how a Kavya Shastra should look like, what are its characteristics. And one more important aspect that I realized through this MA is that Sanskritam is one language where Kavya has been given a clear scientific structure of how to deal with it, that there is a Kavya Shastra too. And one common aspect that all the acharyas have stressed a lot in the Kavya Shastras is about dosha rahita, or being adosha. So during my project, I delved deeper into what exactly are these kavya doshas? How would they impact kavya? And mainly, I picked kavya darshan from Mammatacharya, and focused on Padavakya doshas, because the Saptamollas of Kavya Prakasha is one of the vast chapters in Kavi Prakash. And as I went through the project, I have seen that there are many connections with the themes of modern day communication, do's and don'ts, and mass communication or corporate communication. A lot of them have been defined as theorems, or the ways in which the definitions or the sutras have been given in Mammatacharya's Saptamollas have deeper connections into all of this. And having done the project and also having delivered a full-fledged class, two sessions in purely Sanskritam medium, that has I can say that has definitely boosted my own atmasthiryam, I should say, and it definitely is encouraging for me to continue the journey of studying the Shastras. And like my colleagues mentioned before, we are very, very fortunate to have the acharyas teaching us through the MA course. They have immense knowledge, and I can best in the world is what I can think of. So overall, the MA Sanskritam program has successfully equipped me with whatever required knowledge that I set out with. And in fact, much more than that, because now I have a renewed energy to take more Shastras and read and study and then go deeper into each one of them. So I definitely feel that whatever I have some sense of accomplishment definitely end of the MA course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nagvaliji. So you might be noticing that every one of these topics, they are currently not available as ready-made courses at different places. Okay, so each of these people are actually charting uncharted territory, not only for themselves but in general. Okay, mostly. Okay, so that is what gives that is what is empowering. That's what we are looking for. So I'm very happy to have this this kind of a batch. Next, let's go for Haridas ji. I'm going by whom I can see on the screen.
Namaste. My name is Haridas Radhakrishnan. I'm a software engineer. I work in the US at American Express, financial services side. Been interested in Sanskritam for a couple of decades now, and started doing some swadhyaya with the help of a few friends on Vyakaranam around 10 years ago, and then had the chance to be involved with Samskrita Bharati and up my conversational levels a little bit, but was looking for such an opportunity to get a systematic introduction to the wealth of our Shastras. So MIT is like a golden hall. You go into this golden hall and they give you keys to many doors. Each of these doors has a Shastra on it, like Kavya, Veda, Vyakarana. So, and that is the gamut of our Indian Shastric knowledge. So it's a stepping stone from which you can explore, you know, this amazing landscape of our heritage. So, and I had been looking for this for many years, like I said, and I'm absolutely blown away by this course. Amazing teachers. I can't speak enough of the quality of the teachers here. All of them are so amazing and so helpful. And amazing students as well. Like my co-students, I owe a lot to them as well. The teachers and students help you grow, not only in learning, but also as a person. So it changes your personality. Learning changes your personality, right? So, and I could experience that firsthand during this course. So that aside, one of the most fascinating things for me personally from childhood has been the Veda, and I've always wanted to study Veda from in a systematic way. So it is one thing to learn chanting, Vedic chanting, right, from your Pandit. One thing to learn that, but where do you go for the theoretical knowledge, right? And that structure probably existed, and maybe it does exist in Sringeri or Kanchi or those places, but not so easily available to the common student. And that is something that I found here in MIT SPS. The Veda stream, which is what I took, just like Nagavalli ji, is so amazing. It opens you up to, it gives an introduction to all the 4 Vedas, and gives you the bird's eye view of what is in there and what to look for. And in doing that studies, I had this opportunity to pursue something that had fascinated me from childhood: swaras. The concept of swaras in Sanskritam, where you have udatta, anudatta, swarita, which I think some of our listeners may understand. Like when you say Vedic mantras, you don't say them flat; you say them with tonal variations. Those tonal variations are called swaras. So something similar to Mandarin, if people know Mandarin. So you have it's a sing-song language, right? So do these swaras carry any intrinsic importance, or do they impact the meaning of a word? How do they change? Because what you will notice when chanting the Veda or hearing the Veda is that the same word may be repeated with different swaras, like purushaha, purushaha. Like, you know, there's a difference when you say the same word in different sentences. So is there any structure to this? That was my question. And for my MA project, I took that question up. So Rigveda Swara Prakriya was my topic. Understanding how swaras change the meaning of a word, how swaras change by themselves when you put them in a sentence. What is the importance of a swara in a Sanskrit word, right? For example, for the listeners who know a little bit of Sanskritam, when you say te, saha tau te, te is bahuvachanam for the pronoun for he, right? He, they both, they all, right? Saha tau te. So this word te comes in a different place too. You can say tava yuvayoho yushmakam, your. So it's your book, tava pustakam, right? There's another word for tava, which is also te vam vaha. Now, how do you differentiate between these two? In a sentence, by context, you can say what is, whether it is sahato te as opposed to te vam vaha. But by looking at the swara also, you can say this. So if it's udatta te, like that udatta, which means at a high tone, that means it is the pronoun they, sahato te. But if it's anudatta te, that means it is tava, your. So this kind of knowledge, right, is embedded. This level of information encoding is embedded in swaras. And this comes out when Vedic studies. When you read the mantras of the Veda, this level of encoding is also going on simultaneously along with the meaning of the word itself. So when you read the word, visually you can read it. But unless you read it with the swaras and you say it out, or at least in your mind, you say the word out, you won't get a full grasp of the meaning. So there's a double layer of information encoding going on. So this kind of interesting information is what I found when doing this project. So my goal was to firstly understand how swaras impact a single word. And when you put the words together in a sentence, how the swaras change by themselves. For example, if you take a anudatta plus udatta, a low tone plus a high tone, two vowels coming into contact, the resulting tonal variation, what is it? Are the rules behind it? Just like sandhi, like in most of you might know, when you combine a plus e, like Rama plus Ishwaram, becomes Rameshwaram. You know that. But what if the a was anudatta, had a low tone, and e was udatta, high tone? Is there any tonal variation here? So this kind of information is found in the Swara Prakriya of a book called the Rigveda Pratishakyam. So I took up this book as my project, and my studies at MIT SPS had prepared me for this in one way, which is whenever we read Kavya, we read it with commentaries, traditional Samskritam commentaries, Vyakhyanas. So I had become used to reading the Samskrita Vyakhyana for the Kavya. And when I took up the Rigveda Pratishakyam, it came with a Vyakhyanam written millennia ago. The Rigveda Pratishakyam is also a millennia old work. The commentaries are also millennia old, written in Sanskritam. Prior to doing this course, it would have completely intimidated me. I would not have taken this up because even though it had a commentary, right, it's too intimidating for me to take it and read the commentary. But now with the preparation from MIT SPS, I was pretty much used to reading the Vyakhyanam and then trying to decipher the actual text, core text itself. So taking up this work and going through it has been simply amazing. My goal was to understand, taking a Rigvedic mantra, taking a mantra, how to do a padapata, a word analysis, see how the swaras change, and then do the reverse. Take padapata and then put it back into Samhita form with the correct swaras. And I think I achieved that. I was so happy at the end of it. In the sense that, going back to Saivarya's point, going for conceptual understanding is I think one of the driving forces of today's age. Like, it's no longer enough for us to learn things by rote and then to decipher the meaning much later on. We want the concepts first, and then we go after the text. So that's I think, in my opinion, one of the common themes you'll see in learning nowadays. Go for the concept and then go for the text, right? So this prepared me for it in a very, very nice manner. And all of our acharyas were so helpful as well. So that's a brief expo on my project. Welcome any questions. That's pretty much it.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, there is a very common understanding, or you might say even prejudice amongst people who are not particularly well versed with Sanskritam, just because this has been repeated again and again, that Vedic Sanskritam is so old, so archaic. It is difficult to decipher and understand, whereas classical Sanskritam is more easy to understand. So in other words, they divided into some sort of pre-Paninian Samskritam and post-Paninian Samskritam. I wanted to ask, the question I want to ask you is, in your exploration of Rig Veda mantras and so on, does this distinction hold true for you in your experience, or is it more of a mythology that has been created?
Well, one important aspect of the difference is swaras. Like we no longer adhere to the tonal variations in classical Sanskritam. We don't hold the swaras when reading kavyas, etc. But apart from that, there is no difference because it is the same underlying substructure that supports the, what we call as classical and what we call as Vedic. It's exactly the same underlying base of dhatus. There are around 2000 dhatus, roots, verbal roots. And the way you create noun forms is also exactly the same structure, the same grammatical basis. So in that sense, there's no difference. Now, there some of the verbs that are used in the Veda are no longer used commonly in classical Sanskritam. So that may be one observation you can make. But otherwise, there is no intimidating barrier for a person who knows classical Sanskritam to understand Vedic Sanskritam. In other words, if you take, let's say, ancient Greek and current Greek, right, and modern Greek, there is a very vast difference between the two. Not so in the case of Samskritam, Vedic and classical. It's not to that level. So mainly swaras. Think of it that way. Apart from that, it's all the same.
Wonderful. So then basically this idea that Vedic Sanskritam is somehow inaccessible because it's so old and archaic is more of a modern day mythology rather than any really any truth to it. Really.
Exactly. So if you take any of the Bhashyams, like let's say you take Sayana Bhashyam on the Vedas, right? And if let's say you take Mallinatha's Bhashyam on Raghuvamsha, you will find the exact same methodology used in the Bhashyas. They will take every word. They will say, what is the dhatu? They will give you the dhatu reference. They will say, quote a few Panini rules from the Ashtadhyayi, whether it's Sayana Bhashyam on Rigveda or Mallinatha's Bhashyam on Raghuvamsha, right? So it's the exact same structure. Dhatu Patas, Ashtadhyayi, the core books of grammar, Unadi Sutras, Pit Sutras, these four underlying core texts underlie, on both the cases. So it's not different at all.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's go to Anuj Valmiki.
Namaste. Can I share a presentation if it's okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I hope people can see this presentation. So my name is Anuj Valmiki, Ramanujan Valmiki. I'm a student from Bengaluru of this course. I am a retired engineer who worked in the chip design area. I have retired more than 10 years ago, and I'm engaged in this study of Sanskrit and teaching and such more useful pursuits today. So mama अद्य अन्यैः आङ्ग्लभाषायां कृतं छात्रः एकः यः अत्र कक्षायां भूत्वा संस्कृते एव ज्ञानं प्राप्त्वा कथं संस्कृते एव यद् वक्तुम् इच्छति तद् वदति च इति भवद्भिः अपि ज्ञायते इति मत्वा यद् मया उच्यते तत् सर्वं ज्ञातविषयः एव इति मत्वा संस्कृते एव वक्तुम् इच्छामि। अत्र मम अस्मिन् सत्रे किम् इत्युक्ते संस्कृतवाङ्मयद्वारः उद्घाटितः अभवत् इत्येव वक्तव्यं। यथा हरिदास महोदयेनापि उक्तं बहूनि द्वाराणि सन्ति तद् एवं तु तदेव मम अपि अभिप्रायः. The door to the world of great sounds is what this course allows you to get in. किमर्थं गुरोः सकाशे संस्कृतज्ञानार्जनयत्नः स्यात् इति किमर्थं स्वाध्याये एव वयं ज्ञातुम् अशक्ताः भवामः इत्युक्ते एवं वक्तुं शक्नुमः। दुरधीता विषं विद्या अजीर्णे भोजनं विषं गोष्ठी दरिद्रस्य विषं व्याधिरवीक्षितः इति। अत्र यदि विद्याम् अन्यरीत्या ज्ञास्यामः तद् विषम् अपि भवितुं शक्यते, विषमज्ञानं भवितुं शक्यते, तथा न स्यादिति गुरोः सकाशे एव करणीयं, सम्यक् अधीतव्यम्। यथा भोजनम् अपि अजीर्णस्य विषं भवति, यथा दरिद्राणां गोष्ठी अपि विषं भवति, यथा अवीक्षितः व्याधिः अपि विषं भवति। अवीक्षितः इत्युक्ते यद् अस्माभिः सक्षमरीत्या रोगनिवारणं यदा न क्रियते तद् व्याधिः विषमेव भवति। तथा तु चाणक्यः बहु सम्यक् उक्तवान् अस्ति। कठोरमपि तस्य उपमा किञ्चित् कठोरं भवति एव। अनधीत्य गुरोरग्रे प्रतिभाति कथं श्रुतिः, सिकता मुष्टिभिः सेतुः कथं नाम निबध्यते इति क्षेमेन्द्रस्य भारतमञ्जर्याम् उक्तिः। तो यः गुरोः अग्रे श्रुति अत्र इत्युक्ते वेदः इति, परन्तु स्यात् विद्या इति स्वीकुर्मः। यः गुरोरग्रे अनधीत्य स्वयमेव किञ्चित् ज्ञास्यामि इति चिन्तयित्वा श्रुति अभ्यासं कर्तुम् इच्छति, तस्य यत्नः कथं भवति? यः सेतुं सिकता मुष्टिभिः निर्मातुं प्रयतते तथा इति। अर्थात् one who tries to build a bridge using sand, it will become like that. You need a solid foundation, so you need the guru varyas who have the correct knowledge to get you started. So these are the good reasons why you have to come to the gurus, and this is a good place to have good gurus. Atra kimartam samskrita jnanaya kalarthavyayah, kalavyayah arthavyayah cha atra kimartam iti prashnah syat. अन्येषाम् अपेक्षया किञ्चित् अधिकव्ययः स्यादपि फलप्राप्तेः तुलनया समञ्जसः एव तदिति मम अभिप्रायः। तुष्टोऽस्मि अहम् अस्मिन् विषये। अपि च प्रतिदिनं सार्धैकघण्टात्मकं पाठः भविष्यति। पुनरावर्तने समानयत्नः च इष्टः। तु आदिनं पठनीयम्, एतत् करणीयं, तत् पुस्तकं, तत् सर्वं पठितव्यम्, एवम् अत्र निर्बन्धः नास्ति। यथा साई महोदयेन अपि उक्तं, किञ्चित् द्वाररूपेण किञ्चित् ग्रन्थानां पठनं सर्वं भवति, अत्र मार्गदर्शनमेव प्रामुख्येन भवति। अपि च वाङ्मयस्य सर्वस्य किञ्चित् वा स्पर्शः सम्भवति, एतदपि अन्यैः उक्तं। तृषाजनकः यत्नः एषः। अन्तर्जालमाध्यमस्य सक्षमः उपयोगः अपि दृश्यते। Just because it's a Sanskrit course, don't imagine that the latest technology is not being applied, and that verily is the standing truth of Saivarya, who is a 100% software professional who switched career and is today operating this institute for the university, and he is a standing example of how technology can be applied to improve knowledge of some spread of Samskritam. Okay, and he has implemented that through a very good LMS system in this course. आभारतीय संस्कृत पंडिताः अस्माकं गुरवः। अत्र गुरवः कथम् इत्युक्ते आभारतीय संस्कृत पंडिताः। अत्र एव अस्मिन् संस्थायाम् एव स्वीकर्तव्यम् एवं नास्ति निर्बन्धाः। साई महोदयाः अपि च तेषां गणः बहुत्र गत्वा यत्र सक्षम पाठ करणे सक्रियाः सन्ति तेषां सम्पर्कं स्वीकृत्य तेषां योजनं भवति। उच्चस्तरीये सुसंस्कृते पाठितुं कृतसङ्कल्पाः अस्माकं गुरवः। साक्षात् पाठनीयस्य विषये कृतभूरि परिश्रमाः ज्ञानिनः च। ह्यः पठित्वा किमपि अद्य पाठयामि एवं नास्ति, अस्तु वा? वेदान्तविषयाणां कृते तु गुरुकुलपद्धत्यौ एव प्राप्तबोधाः अपि च अस्माकं गुरवः। अन्तर्जालमाध्यमे कथं पाठनीयम् इत्यपि लब्धज्ञानिनः अपि। They are modern where it is required and using Gurukula Paddhati establishment where it's required in the appropriate sense. Okay, yatra आवश्यकं तत्र सहायकानाम् अपि योजनं क्रियते। संस्था यदा बहु उच्चस्तरीयगुरवः ये माध्यमे अधिकप्रयत्नं कर्तुम् अशक्ताः भवन्ति तदा सहायकानामपि योजनं भवति, यथा LMS मेंटेनेन्स् सर्वं सम्यक् भवेदिति। LMS विषये अपि किञ्चित् वक्तुम् इच्छामि। LMS इत्युक्ते भवन्तः जानन्ति एव, लर्निङ्ग् मैनेज्मेंट् सिस्टम् थ्रू विच् द आन्लैन् कोर्स् इस् टाट्। पाठमुद्रणानाम् उपलब्धिः पुनरावर्तनाय कल्पितमस्ति। यत्किमपि कक्ष्यायां भवन्तः न भवितुम् अशक्ताः भवन्ति चेत् एकदिने वा दिनद्वये वा तस्य मुद्रणं उपलब्ध्वा पठितुं शक्नुमः, चिन्ता नास्ति तत्र। दर्शिनीपत्राणां, सहायकग्रन्थानां, लेखानां च सहयोगः अपि भवति तत्र। केवल यद् दर्शिनीपत्रेषु लिखितं तदेव इति न, सहायकग्रन्थानाम् अपि च उपलेखानां च सहयोगः भवति एव, बहु लाभाय तत्। अपि च 5 अथवा 5अधिकं वा आन्तरिकपरीक्षाः अपि प्रतिविषयस्य भवति। तु मध्ये मध्ये स्वपरीक्षा अभ्यासः एवं संजायते एतेन. So there will be internal tests interestingly composed to help us maintain our study level honestly. Telegram Chatraganeshu Sandesha Preshanam Samshaya Nivaranam cha Sambhavati. So just because we have a LMS, there is nothing like getting stuck to that. We use the social platforms, the university uses the social platforms, also encourages the students to form their own groups and help each other, which is, it's excellent and advitiya in my experience. High availability and a reliable LMS platform, not some rickety system is in place. Okay. स्वाध्याये योजनं कथं क्रियते अस्मिन् सत्रेषु इति, न केवलं सत्रान्तपरीक्षाः अपि च मध्ये मध्ये सम्भवन्ति ते परीक्षाः। कदाचित् शिक्षकाः अपि अस्मान् स्वाध्यायपरान् कुर्वन्ति। आन्तरिकपरीक्षासु विशिष्टरीत्या प्रश्नानां स्थापनेन एवं क्रियते. Sometimes we are made to present some of the learned portions in reverse lectures, where we reteach some of the elements and then other students and our teacher assess how we have learned it. This experience happened to us in the Jyotisham class, which was exhilarating for us. And then Antima Shanmasike Chatraihi Chitagrantasya Jnanarjanam api cha tasya bodhanam kriyate. So this was taught. I mean, there was a course in the last semester where each of us picked up one interesting subject, learned it and taught it. So maya आयुर्वेद क्षेत्रे किंचित चित्वा कार्यं कृतं. इदानीं तु वैद्यानां प्रामुख्यता अस्ति, अपि च आयुर्वेदस्य पुनरुत्थानं संजायमानम् अस्ति इति दृष्ट्वा मया अष्टाङ्गहृदये दिनचर्याध्यायस्य पठनं कृत्वा तस्य पाठः सञ्चालितः. बहु उपयोगः आसीत्. मम उपयोगः आसीत्. छात्राणां कथम् इति न जानामि, प्रायः इच्छितः. एवं धन्यवादाः, नमो नमः. प्रश्नाः अस्ति चेत् पृच्छन्तु. धन्यवादः.
Can you stop sharing the screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Could you stop sharing, Anuj Mahodaya?
I am unable to see. I see a new share. I am unable to see a stop share. You guys can throw me out. I am somehow not seeing a stop share. I don't know for what reason.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. So, Saiji, I want to intervene a little bit.
Sure.
We are at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So I'd like to
have all of them done, I think, right? Anybody else?
All of them are done.
Okay.
All of them are done.
Wonderful. So I'd like to ask Ankur to put up the survey. It's a quick survey, and I want to say a couple of things about the survey. This is one question. Are you interested in the MA Samskritam program? Okay. And you can answer yes, no, maybe, and that's it. It'll take you 10 seconds to answer this. So I invite all of you to answer this. Okay. I'm going to answer a separate question which has come up in the chat window, which is sort of come up. What's the prerequisite preparation required to enter the Samskritam program, MA Samskritam program? Now, the MA Samskritam program is taught entirely in the Sanskritam language, and therefore, obviously, a certain level of conversational Sanskritam proficiency is required to enter the Sanskritam program, the MA Sanskritam program, that is. Now, there are different pathways to achieving that conversational Sanskritam proficiency. At HUA, we have multiple certificate programs in Sanskritam right now, which will take you from practically no background in Sanskritam, not even the script, all the way to having sufficient proficiency where you can pass the entrance, the proficiency test, and then gain admission into the MA Sanskritam program. So passing the test is very, very important. In fact, we're going to start a new batch in the month of July, first week of July. And for those of you who are interested, you want to try your hand at the Sanskrit proficiency test, you should right away get into it and take the test. What's the harm in taking a test, right? So with that, I would like to invite Saiji and Vaishnaviji, if you want to say anything about the proficiency test and the admission process, etc., please kindly take the floor.
Vaishnaviji, you want to?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the Sanskrit language proficiency test, something that will test basic vocabulary that you will need to through the class and understand it, because the sessions are going to be from day one in Sanskrit. So
there is Vaishnaviji, there is
Your
some
audio is not clear.
Something is not coming through clearly.
Is it better?
There is some disturbance.
Is it better this time?
Better, but there is some disturbance. But please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Or Saiji, would you like to take it?
Sure. Okay. Yes. So the Sanskrit language proficiency test is a almost like a 1.5 hour online test that you can self register and take, and we have a free preview. It will test basically whoever has gone through the Samskrita Bharati's conversational Samskritam and Parichaya up to Pravesha, Parichaya, they can basically they have enough proficiency to be able to take this test. It'll give you questions on reading comprehension, listening comprehension, basic understanding of kind of working knowledge of Sanskrit grammar. Not, you don't have to identify what sandhis is, all that stuff. Just the ability to parse words and sentences to the so that you can follow the stuff. And it takes about an hour and a half to complete online. And once you register, you can take 2 attempts. So you have to pass, you have to get 70%, I think, to be able to pass the test. And there is a basic version, and there is a basic and an advanced intermediate level Sanskrit. You have to pass both of them, minimum 70%. And it costs about, for US non-India based students, it's about $25. And otherwise, for India based ones, it's 500 rupees. And you need to take the test. The score of that test is prerequisite for entering the master's program in Sanskrit, for all, both India-based as well as non-India based.
Yeah, and the validity of period for the test is 90 days. So from the day you register, the test is available to you for 90 days. And which means if you take the first attempt and you feel you need more preparation, you could take some amount of time. And we also have some courses which you could do. The Sanskrit Vyavaharika Sanskritam course, which you could do and brush up with Sanskrit vocabulary and come back and do the test in say some more days. That's
Right.
possible.
And if you take the proficiency test, pass it, and you're not ready for the masters this year, that test is valid for 1 full year. So you can even join later. So it's better to just take the test to see where you are right now.
Any further questions?
Yeah.
There are some questions in the chat about the links to the proficiency tests and
Yeah, just write to us, contact us on the HUA, just write a note to us. We'll set you up.
there was also a query on the fees involved, and there was another query on the if I'm new to Sanskrit, is there some way I can learn and then come into the program? So we do have options for that, right? There's a learning thinking in Sanskrit course which is available online. You can do that, and then there's also a follow-up one called Shastrik Sanskrit. So those two, yeah.
So there is a query that if I don't pass the test, then what happens? So if you don't pass the test in the first attempt, you can always, as we've been mentioning here, subscribe to the courses for learning Sanskrit, and then like come back and give your second attempt. That's possible, or else take some time and learn Sanskrit and maybe attempt again next year. That's also okay.
And one more question about the have the days of the week of the MA program been determined? Yes, mostly all of our classes happen, live classes happen from 6:30 to 8 a.m. India time, and the equivalent ones in the US time zones. That's the most convenient slot we found for everybody so far. And classes will be there throughout the week, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, Anuji answered that.
Okay. So let's take a quick look at the survey. Has everybody had a chance to respond to the survey?
About 52 out of 66 people have completed it so far.
Okay, yeah. So, Ankur, do you want to show the results of the survey? Or give it a couple of minutes? Okay, wonderful. So, terrific. Excellent.
So the next batch is going to start, the classes are going to start from July 1st. So that is that's the timeline. So we are in beginning of May, and typically the admissions will be closed by the mid-June latest. So that gives you basically a full month to try your first proficiency test, and then maybe brush up a little bit if needed, and then be ready for the program.
I wanted to mention, for those of you who feel that you may not be ready for the MA Samskritam, you have to start at an earlier place in your journey, Samskritam journey. We now have at HUA we have 3 different streams of Samskritam. One is called the basic Samskritam proficiency certificate. And there is a slightly more advanced Samskritam proficiency certificate. And then we have a third one now called Learn Samskritam through the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, for 8 quarters, you're immersing yourself in the Bhagavad Gita, and through the Bhagavad Gita, you learn Samskritam. So the course does double duty. You learn both the Bhagavad Gita and Samskritam simultaneously. So there are 3 different kind of streams of learning Samskritam. So what are the fees? Well, the master's program in Samskritam, if you are based outside of India, will cost, the discounted price, the 50% discounted price of the master's program is $7,200. The full price would be $14,400, but we are cutting it in half to make it accessible. $7,200 for the whole program. Of course, if you take the program in India, if you're based in India, the fees will be charged differently. Maybe Saiji can share the price.
Yeah, that is 66,000 per year, so times 2. So 120, 132. 1,32,000 for the overall program.
That's in rupees.
For India based. India resident students.
Yeah, it's India resident in rupees.
In rupees, where you have to, of course, if it is an MA degree, it is currently available for MA degree. MA degree program is available for those who are resident in India or those who are willing to come physically to campus and write a final exams December and May. So that's up to you.
I would like to add one point, if that's okay. So for those of you who are intimidated by the Sanskritam proficiency test and the fact that the teaching is going to be in Sanskritam, please don't be, because we have had a couple of absolute beginners in our batch, and they're doing totally fine. So it's a very valuable learning experience, and to ramp up your Sanskritam by learning the subjects, a really amazing experience. So the basic knowledge you require to get in is really basic. So for somebody who is like all of you who are professionals, or who are gone past their engineering degrees, etc., this will be a cakewalk. That's my take on it. So please don't be intimidated by the fact that you have a proficiency test to get it.
Having said that, I would like to add that though it is doable, it's not really a cakewalk. It will challenge you for sure. So expect to spend at least, so the classes themselves will take about 9 hours a week, right? Committed session time. To that, you will have to add another minimum 6 hours per week. So I think plan to spend at least anywhere between 12 to 18, 20 hours a week in order to do well in this program. This has been our experience. And if you do that, if you're willing to do that, then yes, it is very enjoyable and very, very rewarding. But but I don't want you to leave the impression that if you don't know Sanskrit, you will find it very easy. It will not be. You'll struggle. But if you know reasonably good Sanskrit, you'll find it easy. And if you are willing to learn quickly and invest time to explore things which you don't know, then it's definitely doable. Because like you said, if you have done engineering and other degrees, then in that context, yes, it will not be tough, but you will have to spend the time and energy.
So my comment was about the Sanskritam proficiency test, not about the whole course.
Okay. I misunderstood. Okay.
Like Avitpuri was saying, getting into the course, yeah, you will have to spend the time, but you can take it slower. Like if you're doing it over a 4-year period, you are going to only have 2 classes a week rather than 4 classes a week, right? So you can pace it to your level, or what to the speed to the have. So yes, definitely once you're in the program, you have to commit yourself to it and set time apart for it. But don't think of the proficiency test as a barrier. It's not that much of a barrier. It's very basic Sanskritam that you need to pass through the proficiency test.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also there's a sample proficiency test you can take. I don't know if it's still available, but at my time it was. So you can gauge whether you are at the required level or not. If not, then there are remedial courses to which I have posted the link in the chat, Sanskrit 1 and Sanskrit 2. If you just do Sanskrit 1, that will get you past the proficiency test. If you do Sanskrit 2, it'll prepare you well for the type of Sanskrit that you will hear from our acharyas. Because, for example, if you have just done conversational Sanskrit from, say, Sanskrit Bharati, it will you will have a bit of a surprise when you hear what our acharyas are saying, because they'll use a different Shastric Sanskrit, which is more formal and more based on Nyaya and things like that. So it'll use different constructs which we normally don't use in conversational Sanskrit, which is a lot simpler. So if you do Sanskrit 1 and then give the test, and if you have time before the MA program, I recommend you do Sanskrit 2. That will put you in good shape for the actual program.
So I want to speak to people who are interested in the program briefly. You know, the best way is to get into a dialogue with us. Okay. You know, write to us. There's a contact form which I've just typed in the chat window. Let me do it again. You know, just write a note to us saying, I'm interested. How do we get started? How do I get into the proficiency test and so on? And then, you know, we can start a conversation. Somebody will reach out to you. You can even talk to some of the faculty members. It'll become a much more informed decision-making process for you. And you can look at all the details of timings, costs, feasibility, preparedness, readiness, all of that. Okay, so that let it be a conversation that we are having actively, rather than you know, it be an informal kind of click a button on a on a website type thing. You can start the conversation by clicking a button, but then you'll be speaking to people. And I wouldn't be mistaken if I say that the faculty who are teaching these programs are very, very eager to connect with you as prospective students, and we're very happy to engage with you and, you know, provide any consultation.
I think from a general standards perspective, right? To put it in perspective, something along the lines of Parichaya and Siksha level of grammar of Sanskrit Bharati would be adequate for passing the test.
Okay.
There is a question on cost differential. Kalyanji, do you want to address that, or
What is the question? I'm not clear.
Why is there such a cost differential for Bharatam based versus India based versus non-India based?
See, I think you know, the basic principle there is that you know, there is something called PPP. I don't know if you've heard of this term. It's called purchasing power parity. Now, in order to make the program viable, meaning that the number of students in the program, the mix of students from India versus the mix of students from outside India, and the cost of running the program, taking all that into account, we have come up with a pricing structure with which we are able to currently meet the obligations of the program. Okay, so there's a lot of careful thought has gone into it. Therefore, the price differential is the way it is. And I would get very, very, you know, it's very important that we don't circumvent this this model, because the model works because of the price differential.
I would like to actually add to that response. See, I would, first of all, there are two ways of doing MA. Okay, you can run on government money in India and then give huge discounts like throwaway prices, 2,000 rupees per year, where the bulk of the cost is actually hidden in subsidies given to the universities. Okay, whereas, and in that there is a catch. Okay, there's a lot less flexibility in what you can offer, how you can innovate in the program. And the other side is, if you want to really create a program that is catering to the needs of today's people and their aspirations, you need to innovate a lot. That kind of innovation is not being found possible even among the traditional Sanskrit universities. Okay, so to do such a program requires a minimum amount of effort, minimum amount of cost. Like for instance, as somebody mentioned, we try to pick the best acharyas for the particular subject at hand. Okay, not run with a few people and then that kind of thing. So that requires us to, first of all, we need to respect their time and their scholarship, and we need to remunerate them properly. So the actual cost is what the non-India based student cost is. That is what we are actually incurring. The India based cost is heavily discounted, just so that, honestly speaking, we cannot run this program based on India students. Why? Because it's just simply not possible. Okay, you need to have like 200 students to be able to meet that cost.
Right. So just to add on that, right? I think it's just important for all of you to understand that there's a very careful modeling has gone into the pricing structure based upon our expectations of and experience of, right now we have 2 years already. We are going to start the 3rd year's batch in July. So with the prior 2 years of experience in terms of the number of students we were able to attract both in India and outside India, the pricing structure is appropriate in order to meet the costs. Because you see, the faculty have to be compensated regardless of the number of students, you see. And so the structure has been very well thought out. So I would invite you to accept that explanation. Yeah, I mean, for $7,200 is for most people living in the US or in Europe and UK, it's not much at all, really. It is, if you look at the cost versus value, it's a terrific value proposition. Okay, so let's see. Is there any more questions? Difficulty in reading Devanagari scripts. If you do, you'll have to start at an earlier stage, sir. Okay. So every year we'll start a new batch in the month of July. So if you miss this July, then you'll have to join the next July. Okay, next July. So you could usefully spend the next 1 year acquiring the proficiency levels required to enter the program next July. Yeah. So see, if you a master's program in a typical American university would cost considerably more. The equivalent number of credit hours, a master's program, you'll be looking at $30,000 approximately, or more than that. So at 7,200, it's already very deeply discounted, even for outside India students. And then you'd go down to 1.32 lakh rupees in India. It's even further more discounted at that point.
Typically, I heard that minimum cost tuition fee per credit, even in community colleges, is 300 minimum per credit.
Per credit hour, that's right.
Per credit hour. And this is being offered at $150 per credit.
That's right. Okay, I think we're sort of running out. Okay, accreditation status. I'll answer that question. It's come up a couple of times. So, first of all, MIT, Maharashtra Institute of Technology in Pune, is already accredited by the University Grants Commission in India, right, Saiji?
Yes.
So there is no problem there, okay, on the MIT side of the house. Hindu University of America is not yet accredited in the United States, but we are engaged in the accreditation process and we will get accredited. I promise you, we will get accredited. And once it is accredited, this program will be as good as any other master's program in the West. We are going to get accredited with 2 different accreditation agencies in the West, at least 2, maybe 3. The first one is the Distance Education Accreditation Commission, DEAC. The second one is the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, SACS. So it'll take a couple of years, 2 to 3 years to get it complete for the first accreditation, maybe a couple of years thereafter for the second accreditation agency. But we are very committed to get that completed. All right, I think, we've exhausted the questions. I'd like to, complete the webinar today by thanking all the participants today, the panelists, all the students. I want to add for the students, see, this program, this mastering Samskritam. Well, it can be a hobby. It's also a tremendous opportunity for us to begin to bring to life, bring to our awareness the numerous Sanskritam texts that are part of our heritage, but in many cases not translated properly, not adequately understood, and so on. And the early batches of students who are acquiring this level of mastery with the language, I hope will be doing pioneering work in the years ahead in bringing to light critical and important Sanskritam texts that have been submerged into the unconscious, into the Hindu unconscious. We want to surface them back to our consciousness collectively, and hopefully this effort will bear these kinds of fruits in the future. So with that, thank you all. Namaste to all the participants, all the panelists, and the faculty who joined us. Saiji, namaste. Vaishnaviji, namaste. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Bye.